Well, good evening, sisters and brothers. And I say sisters and brothers because I'm a proud member of the union. And yes, who's else is a member of the union here? So the first thing I'll ask you, does it feel good to win? Come on, you can do better than that. Does it feel good to win? Quite an honor to be here, and I also want to thank, since Quinn thanked everybody else, I want to thank Quinn for the amazing job she did. Now, people have, since I got here, and I've been talking to people at the swearing in, which was quite an honor to be at, what a great event. People have said, well, thank you for coming from New York for this event. And I always say, no, thank you. Thank you for this victory, because it has inspired me and given light at a somewhat dark time. And I will tell you that I spent the last, I guess it was 2 weeks after the election, refreshing my San Luis Obispo County Register site to find out. And if there's one thing, if I can ask, Mayor, that you do, is could we count the ballots a little bit faster next time, please? For those of us who are far and away and have to wait for a long time and are just dying to know what happened. And when I heard that Heidi won, I was in the middle walking out of a meeting and I said, yes, this is fantastic. Now, because there are younger people here, I actually use other words along with that, but I'm trying to keep it as G-rated and clean as possible. Now, it was one of the greatest honors of my life to be a surrogate for Bernie Sanders. He was the candidate that I had waited my whole adult life for. The authenticity of the man. The fact that he talked to us as adults. I don't know how many of you got to go and listen to him at a rally. I was fortunate enough. Raise your hands if you saw Bernie. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And if you ever saw Bernie at a rally, those of you who didn't get to go, he would come out with this huge sheaf of papers, all in longhand. And what he would do was talk to us as adults. He would talk about Glass-Steagall. He would talk about Citizens United. He talked about the inequality that we face in America. He would talk to us and lecture to us and speak to us, not just as backdrops for political ads, but because he wanted to inspire a political revolution. Yeah. And remember, one of the things he said, that in this country we need to think big. That as Americans, we need to think big about the challenges and about the solutions, whether it be healthcare or college education, all the things that a decent society should have that we can afford and that we need to do if we have the political will. And he talked about the political revolution. And sisters and brothers, that political revolution is happening right here in San Luis Obispo. Now, how did I get into this? Earlier this year, I came to San Luis Obispo for an event. And I had been all over the country for Bernie over the course of a year. I guess the event was in April, May, I can't remember now. And I came to speak for Bernie. And I get emotional thinking about just speaking for him because that I'm still moved and inspired by that man. And I came to Heidi's house. I got here a little bit earlier, and I walked in, and I had a little time to kill. And those of you who know the wonderful house that Heidi and Larry have and have given up for the campaign, it was the center, the nerve center for Bernie's campaign for so long. I stood on the side. I sat down and watched volunteers come in to get literature. Volunteers coming in to find out how they could participate. And I watched this woman, the way she dealt with people, the way she talked to people, the way she understood, first of all, the mechanics of the campaign, the way she understood what needed to happen, but at the same time could bring the volunteers in, make them comfortable, want them to go out there and hit the streets, but wanted them to be prepared. I'm sure, raise your hands if you were a volunteer in the Bernie Sanders campaign. I'm sure there are many people here. And immediately I said to myself, I've been around politics a long time, and I said to myself, there is a leader. Not just because of her knowledge, but she was in the Bernie Sanders mold. Authentic, understanding people, wanting to get the most out of people, and wanting to empower people to bring the political revolution to San Luis Obispo. And right away, I said, this is a leader. And then we had the event that night, and it was a great event. I want to thank those of you who were there and who volunteered and put it together. She stood up, and the question and answer, I'll never forget this. You were over there on the right. You said, you know, I'm thinking of running for office, and maybe I'm going to run for council or mayor. And the whole place erupted in cheers. And over the course of then several months, Heidi and I talked about what it would take to run for office. And in some way, the biggest thing, the biggest challenge for all of us to run for office is to believe that you can win. And that it's worth jumping in. All the other mechanics you can figure out, but it takes enormous amount of courage because of the personal sacrifice that one must make, and Heidi did that for the good of the people of San Luis Obispo. Now here's the other thing, and I know she's going to say this too. You all made this happen. The victory and the reason we can call Heidi Harmon mayor is because of all the people sitting here. Whether you made a phone call, or you donated $25, or you walked the streets, or you told your neighbor about this candidacy, that's how victories are made possible. You made this happen. Now, last two things I want to say is that you need to have Heidi's back. Okay, it doesn't end here. It doesn't end with her being sworn in. It doesn't end with this wonderful victory party. Every single person who is here to celebrate this victory, when you leave here today, your job is to make sure that this political revolution begins today and goes on from now, every single week, every single month. And it doesn't take a lot. It means that when the mayor comes forward to the community and says that we need to build housing or there's an environmental issue, you need to spread that message. You need to be out in the streets when the mayor calls on you. But it's simply about talking to people in your community. All political revolutions, all movements, which is what Bernie Sanders talked about, all movements start with the victory, but the victory is just the first moment. That it's a long-term campaign. Are you going to do that? Do you have her back? Will Heidi count on you? Will you be with her? And so the last thing, I guess bringing it into the national context, we have a lot of fighting to do. But I'll tell you, I'm sorry if I use it, I'll be damned if I'm going to let a bigot and a racist and a person who's not fit to lead our country turn back all the work that we have done for 30 years. We have fought too long. We have fought too long for women's rights. We have fought too long for the rights of LGBT. We have fought too long for economic justice. We are not going to let that go back. And the political revolution starts here in San Luis Obispo.